Everybody, and welcome to this introductory demo to Testable. Today I'm going to show you kind of how to get started with the platform and how to create and run a basic test. So here we are on the home page, and if you haven't signed up yet, go ahead and go through the sign up process, and then once you have your account, you can log in. So I'm logging in here for the first time, and what we can see is tells me welcome, and there's a button to create our first test case. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And as you can see here, there's a few simple steps to go through to get a test case up and running. So the first thing we need to decide is the URL that we want to target our load test at. And for the purpose of this demo, we'll go ahead and just use google.com, but we support quite a few different flavors of possible targets, which you can see here or read more about in the documentation. So let's go ahead and do a Google homepage test that's targeted at google.com, and then we'll click next. At this point, we need to define the scenario that we want to run over and over again as part of our test. And at the moment, the only way to do this is by creating a recording. So this will change in the future. So we go ahead and start to record our scenario. And what we see is that Testable has generated this gateway for us that will make it look, if you use the gateway, it's as if you're using google.com, except that every step or every interaction that you have with Google will get recorded into this recording that we'll use as the scenario of our test. So if we click on this, what you'll see is it looks like we just loaded google.com, but if you look in the URL bar, we obviously have this gateway URL for Testable. And if we go back to our scenario definition, we can see that opening google.com in the browser actually ended up executing a whole set of steps for it to load, which obviously starts with going to http.google.com, and then that was redirected. Various images were loaded. And we can see here kind of exactly what happened. And if we want to, if we click on any of these steps, you can then come down here and see kind of the details of that particular step and what packets were sent and received as part of that execution. So at this point, this will be a simple test, so we're happy with the set of steps. And we decide to continue on to configure the parameters that are going to drive our test. So we have our scenario, and now for the purposes of this test, we want to test 5 users doing that scenario at the same time. So we'll call it 5cc for 5 concurrent clients. And as we mentioned, we'll put 5 in here. And then we need to choose which regions we want this to run in. So I'm going to choose North Virginia and Oregon, which means that in each of those locations, we'll have 5 users running our scenario. The final thing is we just need to decide how many times each concurrent client will run the scenario. So we'll go ahead and say 20. So each concurrent client is going to run through the scenario 20 times as part of this test. And once we're happy with that, then we say, okay, let's go ahead and start the test. Now at this point, we see that the test is currently initializing, and we can see where in the world the agents are that are executing the test. So in this case, we have 2 locations. And as you can see now that the circle is getting bigger, the test is now off and running, and we can see that we're getting some results back. If we keep scrolling down, we can see overall some high-level metrics, how far through the test we are, and we can also see the same information for each specific region as the test is running. And once the progress bar gets all the way through, then we know the test is done running. And up here we'll see, so now it's processing results. It should soon go to a completed state, which means that we've successfully completed execution of the test. Once that, and then on this page you can also see per step in the scenario what the performance was like. So what was the performance like to get www.google.com, both things like mean latency, 95th percentile, 99th percentile, what percentage of the requests were successful. And we can see various charts that show us information about the test, which you can explore more yourself. And if you want, you can go ahead and drill down and click on one specific resource and see the performance of just that resource during this test. And that's it. We've now run a load test. We have a scenario, and if we want, then we can click this view test case, or we can click on the link over here, and it will take us to a page where we can go ahead and create other configurations, new scenarios, rerun this configuration, drill down to see, history of executions, and so on and so forth. But that should be enough to hopefully get you started running your first test, and check the documentation for more details on the various features of the platform. Thanks for listening.